Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and talking about Never Bring a Knife. Now, Never Bring a Knife is a game published by Atlas Games, and it was designed by Maggie and Jordan Klein with art by James Mosingo. I'm going to show that there right to you. So now, Never Bring a Knife is a bit of a social deduction card game that is pretty obviously, in my opinion, very much inspired by the final scene of the movie Reservoir Dogs. So if you're not familiar with Reservoir Dogs, first off, stop this video and go watch Reservoir Dogs, then come back and watch this video. But in the final scene of Reservoir Dogs, there is a big standoff where you have all these criminals that were involved in a jewel robbery, and they know that one of them is really an undercover cop, but they don't know who they are, and they all pull their guns on each other, and they're threatening and accusing and trying to figure out who the undercover cop is. This whole game is that, except it's a bank robbery instead of a jewel robbery, but otherwise it's basically the same thing. You know there's one or more cops in your midst, and you're trying to figure out who they are. And while you're doing this, while you're attempting to deduce who's on your side and who's not on your side and trying to convince other people to be on your side, the first time a player gets killed, everyone who is on their team loses and everyone who is on the other team wins. So, let me show you what comes in the box. So the first thing in the box is the rule book, which looks like a stack of money, stack of $100 bills, which is kind of funny and very characterful for this game. The rule book is really good. You'll get through this in no time, and you'll be up and playing in no time. It's a total of 11 pages, but they're thin pages like this. There aren't many diagrams, but in this sort of game, there's not really a lot of diagrams required because it's really just about playing the cards either on yourself or other people. I'll get to that, explaining how that works in a minute. So then we have the box, and what there does look like there's a bit of wasted space here, which is something that I sometimes have a gripe with. But with a game that's really just a deck of cards, it's kind of hard to do a box without wasted space and have it not be a tuck box, which you don't want. You don't want a tuck box. So I'm not really going to complain about that too much. I do like that they left these holes in the trough here. They have these holes to easily pull the cards out. You just stick your fingers in and you can get all the cards out like that. Though actually, as I said that, a couple of them got stuck in there. I'm going to put my fingers in and get those out too. Now, I love you got the little bullet hole there in the bottom of the box, and it says they've got someone on the inside. So, all right, what kind of cards do we have here in the box? So first and foremost, we have the main deck. Now, the main deck looks like on the back, it's made with what appears to be like a steel deck plating. I'm not really sure, or maybe it's supposed to be kind of like a chain link fence, something like that. And you've got all the various cards. You've got like intel cards, and you've got gun cards and crime cards, and you've got money cards, because that's what we're all here for. Another gun, money. We've got armor. Armor is very good for counteracting gun cards. And that's the gist. You've also got, there's a mole card here. But that's kind of like what you're looking at when you're looking in this deck. There's far more things like guns, and one thing I do appreciate, as you can see here, there are multiple kinds of guns in here. They mix it up. There's different sorts of firearms, which is really cool. I like the varying illustrations. There's also the bags of money. Even though at first glance they might appear to be the same, if you actually look closer at them, the illustrations are varied there too, and I kind of dig that, because you have a game that has a lot of cards that are the same cards, and I like that they varied the art up from card to card. Now, the next thing we have is the cheat sheets that are in here. Now, a couple things about the cheat sheets. First off, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cheat sheets in a game that can play up to 8 players. I know this is a novel idea to actually have one cheat sheet per player, but this is good. This is really good. I like that they did this. Second off, the cheat sheets are actually quite good. These are very useful. On one side, they have the turn reference, which gives you a thorough rundown of all the phases of the turn. And then on the other side, they have a card reference, which tells you what each of the cards do. And that is also very good. So the cheat sheets, big thumbs up for me on the cheat sheets. Very much like that. Now, the next thing we have is we have the deck of the roll deck, if you will. The roll cards, excuse me. So the rolls are criminal or cop. And this is really just to deal out to players so they can figure out if they are a criminal or a cop. And again, these are not all the same. They are quite varied, and there's some fun little references in here to various movies and such. For instance, one of the criminal cards is a mask of Richard Nixon, which is an obvious reference to Point Blank. There's another criminal card which has a bunch of lockpicks. There's another criminal card with brass knuckles, which could be a reference to almost anything, but I'd like to think it's a reference to the movie Lawless. You've got another criminal card with a billy club on it, and another criminal card with a pair of gloves. Then we have the cop cards. Now, all the cop cards have badges, but they are different sorts of badges. I'm going to show them all here to you because they do vary quite a bit, as you can see here. This one actually says security, not police, but there you have it. Now, the final deck of cards after all of these roll cards is the bullet hole cards, and these are to keep track of wounds. They're fairly simple. They're all the same. They have two different colors, a dark and a light color one, and they're bullet holes. So you put these out on the table with the dark side up, and you pick one up and put it with the light side up in front of you to mark if you have taken a hit. And that is very important for the way the game works. So how does this game work? So the thing is this. At the beginning of the game, you're going to shuffle up a number of the roll cards based on the number of people playing. Now, you always have at least one, sometimes two extra roll cards that will not be used depending on the number of players playing. So, in a 4 to 5 player game, you mix up 3 cop cards and 3 criminal cards, and you shuffle them and you deal 1 face down to each player, and then 1 face down roll card into the center of the table to be the boss. So in a 5 player game, there's 1 extra card that's the boss, and that's it. And then in a 4 player game, you have 1 card that's the boss and 1 card that would be then discarded. Now, everybody gets to look at their own roll card. So when you get your random roll card and you don't know what you are, and then you say, oh, what am I? Oh, okay, I'm a criminal. Now I know I'm a criminal. And this is where it gets really interesting. Everyone gets to look at the roll card to the player to their left. So the person who is literally next in turn order, you get to see what their roll is. So we're playing with a minimum of 4 people to be able to play this game, and I know what my role is, I know what the person on my left is, but the person behind me, I don't know what they are, but they know what I am, and that's kind of interesting. And during the game, they're doing table talk and trying to influence me based on the fact that they know what I am, but since I don't know what they are, I don't know if I can trust them or not. And that's where it gets really interesting. Now, there are ways to find out during the game, and that is through money, what other people's roles are, and we'll get to that in a second. So, everybody gets a roll. 1 roll goes in the middle of the table as the boss. Everybody gets to look at their own roll. Everybody looks at the next person in turn order's roll and sees what they are, and then you're ready to go. So in the beginning of every turn, the first thing you do is you're going to deal 4 cards from the deck to every player. Now, there is one significant difference in what's going to be in the deck, and that is the intel cards. So when you're playing a 4 or 5 player game, there are no intel cards in the deck, and that is important because intel cards, when you get them, allow you to look at another player's role and immediately know, are they on your team or are they not? And again, now this could be very important information for you, but again, then you kind of have to convince the other players to believe you, whether you're lying or telling the truth. So you also could use an intel card also to look at the boss's card, and this is important also. But again, in a 4 or 5 player game, there is no intel cards, none whatsoever. So in a 6 player game, you get 1 intel card in the deck. In a 7 or 8 player game, you get both. There are 2 in the set, and you get both Intel cards in the deck. So there may be 2 times when people can play Intel. And this is to help counterbalance the fact that with more players, it's harder to keep track of who is what. So there you have it. So now, when you're playing, you get 4 cards dealt to you. And then you go through a round of everybody playing cards out until you play all the 4 cards out. So let's say I was first. Let's say the person to my right dealt the cards. So I'd be playing first. I got 4 cards in my hand. I'm going to take my 4 cards and I get to play one of them. Now, there's some rules on how this goes. Now, you can play a card in front of anybody, but your first card that you play has to be played in front of a player that's not yourself. So I can't start right off the bat by being like, ooh, give myself all the money, give myself all the money. Can't do that. Cannot do that. First card you play has got to be played in front of someone else. Secondly, the first card played in front of anyone, so their first card that they get must be played face up. So if you play a gun in front of someone, you're announcing to the whole table that you think they're not on your team. So now everybody knows, whether you said it or not, everybody knows you are pretty sure that you're not on the same team. Now, because guns are bad, because that means you're actually trying to shoot that person. So, you each play a card in front of someone. Then you each play another card in front of someone. No one can ever have more than 4 cards. If you ever get let's say everybody starts by playing their cards on one player. Let's say you've got Sue over here, and I play a card on Sue. Then Sue plays a card on Jim, and then Jim plays a card on Sue, and then Lynn plays a card on Sue. And then, comes back to me and I play another card on Sue. That's done. She's got her 4 cards and no one else can play cards on her. 4 is the max. Everybody starts with 4 cards in their hand and everybody's going to get a max of 4 cards played in front of them. Now, the first card that was played on Sue, the one that I played, was played face up. So everybody knows how I feel about that, but then the rest of them can be played face down. Once you have played a card on someone else, your future cards can even be played on yourself. So let's say I put my gun on Sue, and let's say someone else put a card face up on me. Now I can play a card face down on myself. Of course, everyone knows that one's going to be a good one, but, I'm slapping some money down on me because money is quite useful. So that is the first thing you're going to do. You're going to deal it out. You're all going to play the cards. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the cards that were face down, and you're going to shuffle them all up together, and you're going to reveal them. The shuffle up is to make sure that it's not super obvious who played what on you except for the first of those cards. Now, in regard to the cards, there's tons of different cards and tons of different things they can do. The cards that were played on you are now going to affect you or can be used by you. So gun cards, every 2 guns are going to cause a wound. But that's rounded down. So if you've only got 1 gun card played on you, that's 0 wounds. If you have 3 cards played on you, that's 1 wound, just the same as 2 would be. Now, an armor played on you can cancel 1 gun. So if you have 2 guns played on you, and a money and an armor, let me grab an armor here, boom, these cards were played on me. Well, the 2 guns equal 1 wound, but the armor cancels 1 of the guns, and since it's rounded down, that's now 0 wounds. So I am totally safe, and then I get to keep the money, which money is one of the very few things that you're allowed to stockpile by slipping it under your roll card and can spend it later because you need 3 money to spend on things, unless you're playing 7 or 8 players. I'll get to that in 1 second. So, crime cards force you to discard a money card. A hit card is one of the few cards that can be stockpiled because a hit card requires you to spend 3 money and then you can cause a wound to one other player of your choice. You better be sure they're not on your team though. Now an intel card, like I said, only in larger player counts, but intel cards allow you to just use them to look at someone else's roll or the boss's roll. And the mole card allows you to swap your roll with the boss's roll without revealing what either of those are to anyone else at the table. Now, after you've done all this, then you have the money talks phase, and you're allowed to spend 3 money either to heal 1 wound of any player at the table, or you can spend 3 money to look at anyone else's roll, like you would do with an intel card. But even in a smaller size game where there are no intel cards, you can still do this. You can spend 3 money to look at someone else's roll, and this can be very, very key. Now, in a 7 or 8 player game, they actually reduce the cost of that down to 2 money, again, to help counterbalance how with lots of people out there and lots of rolls out there, it can be a little harder to keep track of who is what and what's going on. So this is the gist of how you play this game. So at the end of a turn, if anyone has 3 wounds, and FYI, this is after everything has happened. So if, let's say I get 3 wounds, but then someone else who's pretty sure I'm on the same team as them spends 3 money to heal one of my wounds, I'll not die. But if at the end of a turn I have 3 wounds, I die. And then what happens is we all reveal our roles. And now I reveal that I was a criminal that I showed you guys I was at the beginning. I'm a crook. So now everyone who's on the crook team, we all lose. And everyone who's on the cop team, they all win. So if you guys doing wounds to me figured it out correctly that I was not on your team, then you will have won. But people on my own team may have contributed to me becoming deceased and therefore their own loss, which can happen. Now, it also can happen that multiple players, and even multiple players on different teams, can wind up deceased at the same time. Now, if this happens, let's say I died, and in my example before, Sue died too, and she was a cop. So we both become deceased at the exact same time. The tiebreaker is via the boss. Whoever's team the boss was on, and we reveal the boss, and oops, the boss was a cop, the cops win as the tiebreaker, which is why it can be very important to sometimes to know who the boss is, and hence use an intel card or 3 money to find out which team the boss is on, because tiebreakers can be quite important. And that's basically how you play this game. It's actually quite quick. The table talk is really fun. It reminds me a lot of other of these sort of social deduction card games that I have played. But one thing I really like about this above other social deduction card games is that there is no player elimination. A lot of the other ones like Werewolf or Stay Away usually involve people getting eliminated. Like if you, in Stay Away, if you barbecue someone with a flamethrower thinking they're the thing and they're not, they're out, and they got to sit around. Even if it's not that long a game, they got to sit around twiddling their thumbs for a while to wait till you guys to finish up the game. That never happens in this. As soon as somebody gets killed in this game, the game ends. That's it. The game is over, and you find out which team wins, and you find out who was on what team. And so that is a big plus for me. I think that is a really big plus. I also really dig the style that they went with in the appearance of the cards. I like the green backgrounds. It's very thematic because it looks like money a little bit. I think the kind of deck plating background on the back might be a little bland, but it's just the back of the card, so I'm not going to gripe on that too much. I do like the artwork in here. I like the feel of the game. I really like how it reminds me so much of Reservoir Dogs, because I love that movie. Reservoir Dogs is awesome. This is a fun game. I do want to throw out there, though, this is one of those games where it's better the more players you have. I highly recommend more players rather than fewer. I think it's really great once you are able to start adding in at least 1 intel card. So I recommend it at 6+ players, which can be a bit tough. A lot of these, I mean, it's not bad at 4. I've played it at 4 and had it been okay, but you don't have the intel cards. You have to save up the money to be able to look at other people's roles, which happens less frequently. Granted, there are less people around the table and therefore less roles that you need to know. So, it counterbalances a little bit, but I do like this better with more players. So there you have it. That is my look at Never Bring a Knife. Now I'm going to give it a rating. I'm going to give Never Bring a Knife 7 out of 10 stars, because I think this is quite a fun social deduction sort of party game. It's light, it's quick, it's easy to teach. And I really do like that they avoided that pitfall, that common pit trap of player elimination that seems to come up in way too many of these social deduction games. And it's weird because it's something that for some reason we often give a pass to in social deduction games when we would never give a pass to it in any other play style. But there you have it. So Never Bring a Knife has no player elimination. So there you have it. I would recommend this to you if you are a fan of social deduction games and Quentin Tarantino movies, for sure. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns either on Never Bring a Knife or on this video. And if you enjoyed this review and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.